Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com. Let's talk about what's best, braces or Invisalign for high school musicians. I think I've done another video for athletes. So since I have high school age kids who've been musicians and athletes, this is actually a pretty common question. Now, of course, you guys know my opinion, which is the right answer is none of this. The right answer is you should have done it all in phase 1 before age 10, because by the time they're athletes at that level and musicians at that level where it could actually really affect your case, and see some of the content I made on musicians before, I would really recommend, if they're going to be a major musician with something that goes in their mouth with an embouchure, like this stuff, that they do this stuff in phase 1. Because if they're really practicing 3, 4, 5 hours a day, your ortho case is going to be highly unpredictable. It is not going to go as planned. It is possibly going to take way longer. There's going to be a lot. It's not going to be as straightforward. I'm not saying you cannot do it, but if you watch the other content I've made on musicians and ortho, this is something that goes in your mouth. It's a force. It's one thing if you're just doing it like, okay, let's put it this way. Okay, we're going to tell a little story about Dr. Amanda when she played music in high school. I was a clarinetist and an oboist, so woodwind with an embouchure, right? I was very aware that it could cause me to have overjet because the way it goes in, right? As a matter of fact, that's why I switched from clarinet to oboe, because it's a completely different embouchure. And this caused me to have an overjet, and the oboe made it go away. I figured that out. So I played both, and I realized, oh, when I play clarinet for a few hours, and this was before I did my ortho, right? Because I started this maybe like, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and then it went all the way through high school. And I didn't start ortho till I was 17. But I noticed myself, hey, depending on what instrument I play, it makes differences in my bite. Oh no, okay, I think I'm done playing clarinet. And I'm not saying that's gonna happen necessarily. It's gonna depend on a lot of stuff. But same thing, even brass instruments, those will make a potentially, it can roll your teeth in, right? Whereas an embouchure from a clarinet or a sax or something with a single reed is going to flare your teeth out. Do you understand the difference? And a double reed like a bassoon or a oboe is going to roll your teeth in. So it's just additional force. Also, I never recommend doing woodwinds or brass instruments with braces. I mean, that is just absolute torture. Again, this is, speaking of this, when I was in high school, I remember kids just, their mouths just bleeding because their parents forced, I mean, there was no choice back in the 90s and 80s. You had to have braces, right? It was braces or braces. So yeah, I mean, it was just normal that your lips would cut up, and people would try to get their braces during the summer so at least they can get through the harder parts without cutting up their mouth. But it was torture. It really was. So anyways, back to the secret story about me, and hopefully my parents don't listen to this at this point. Too bad, because we're way past that point. But to be honest, once I figured out it was messing up my bite and I had been begging my parents for braces, I said, well, forget this. I want to switch to chorus. This was about 15. I said, I'm just going to do the minimum possible. I knew I was a very good musician. Like, I had talent, and I knew that I could get away with not practicing at all, and no one would ever know. Like, I might not be first chair, but I'd still get an A, you know, it would be good enough. And I really had no interest in doing instruments, you know, orchestra, band for any more than I needed to. I wanted to switch to vocal ensemble anyways. So yeah, that's what happened. And that's how and look how nice and retroclined my teeth are. Thank you so much, oboe. So this is oboe teeth. Okay. So anyways, that is my story. I mean, I think anytime you got a teenager or anyone in there and you're deciding the whole Invisalign versus braces conversation, I mean, first of all, it's always great for someone, be it the front desk or you know, the back office, to have that conversation. Just not real quick, did you have a preference? Hey, you know, mom, let's talk about this. I like to know what you came in for, your preference, if you have a preference, and why. I mean, got to find out the why, because sometimes the reason is just money, and maybe your money's the same, right? Sometimes they think, and they have a view that they think Invisalign doesn't work, which we all know is not true. It works just as well or better than braces in 99.9% of circumstances, and it's healthier. There's about a 0.01 to 0.1 that maybe it doesn't, but that's a very, very much a one-off, as long as they stay in your mouth, right? And my theory, and it's been proven, is that responsible kids, ones that play things like sports and music at a high level, you know, they actually wear their aligners, and it's way more comfortable, and there's way fewer appointments, and it's less damaging, and you'll get the same outcome, assuming your doctor knows what they're doing. Of course, I have to throw that caveat in because it comes down to the experience of the doctor, not unlike braces, right? Same thing. So that would be my personal opinion. I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to know the reason behind it. And I want to hear not only, this is not a one question, this is a question for mom. This is also a question for the teenager or the potential patient. And I would make that crystal clear before you ask it. I'm going to ask this question to both of you separately, and it's okay if you have different answers. It's really important that I get the answer that you both have and why. So, and sometimes the kids have awesome reasons and they should be validated, and you might even know this about them and mom might not either. So now if they both say braces, you know, and you say why, and they say, if the kid says, I don't think I'm going to keep them in my mouth, well, then that's something. But then I'll usually push back and say, okay. Because they might just, you know, be parroting what the mom said to try to avoid things and say, all right, I respect that. But you're coming in here with clean teeth, clean gums, clean hair, clean face, clean clothes. You telling me that you do this, and this after school. Wow. Do you practice? You know, do you get there on time? Well, all signs show me that you will be a compliant patient, and I have zero concerns that you're not going to do this. Are you sure you don't want to consider Invisalign? I think you'll be great at it. Here's the reasons. And by the way, we don't charge anymore. So it's whatever we think is best for the patient, you know? I just want to make sure you have all the information before you pick, you know? That's it. And I mean, when you present it like that, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with the Invisalign, which is going to be less overall studies show it's actually less overhead and you actually make more money on the case, assuming that you're doing your treatment plan right and you have compliance things in set, you know, compliance parameters in place. And hopefully you're being smart on picking the right system and your lab bill and stuff like that. But generally it ends up being way less hours, and studies show that people are way happier after having Invisalign than braces at the end, assuming everything was done right and they didn't have too many refinements. So generally it causes more patient satisfaction and more internal referrals. I mean, that's just a fact, Jack. So very few people who go through braces are excited about it afterwards. They're glad to get them off, but it was a horrible experience, you know? So if they really put their foot down and they want braces and you've explained everything to them, well then they got no right to complain. That's what I have to say, because they're going to complain. They have no right to complain when things break. They got no right to complain when they have to miss school to come in to get things fixed. I'm not going to say it like that, but I'm saying honest truth. You know, okay, I understand. Just keep in mind that if you're going to get braces, sometimes things break. If they do, usually breakage fixing appointments are during school hours. You will have to miss school. Just letting you know that, because the appointments are longer, you know, if you do break things. So definitely, here's our food list. This is what I would do, you know. Et cetera, et cetera. If something breaks, you need to let us know. You can't just come into your regular appointment. And all that, and make sure they know if they decide to switch to Invisalign what the upgrade fee is going to be. And the reverse, from Invisalign to braces, there should be a small fee to switch from one to the other, and you should let them know ahead of time. Now, if you decide to bake that into your plan, which some orthodontists do, but they have a higher overall fee, you could do that too. But I wouldn't do that, because sometimes people just change for the novelty of it. There's got to be some fee to it. There's going to be some pay to play if they're going to switch. So, all right. Thanks so much. Hopefully that's helpful. Take care.